a world drowning in noise, where truth is often buried beneath layers of propaganda and misinformation, there's a need for a different kind of a network of creators that cut through the clutter, that doesn't shy away from tough topics, and that delivers the unfiltered truth. We are Trim Radio Network. We are creators, we are innovators, we are investigators. We're the ones who aren't afraid to call a spade a spade. If you're ready to participate in thought-provoking discussions, informational topics, and of course today's biggest headlines, subscribe to our YouTube channel today. We're Trim Radio Network. We're cutting the bull and serving the truth.
Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. You take the red pill, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, 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 take the red. You stay in Wonderland. You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Now, from the northeast quadrant of the United States, it's the Red Pill Reality Show with your host, Riscalla. Saturday nights from 9 p.m. Eastern until midnight on the Trim Radio Network. You can join the conversation in any of our chat rooms. And now, without further ado, your host, Riscalla.
Hello and welcome everyone. It is the Red Pill Reality Show. Truly an honor and a privilege to be back. Spent some time in another world, my friends. Truly another world. So those of you who have been following me on Facebook know that I made a trip to Cairo, Egypt, where I was born many, many moons ago, and got to visit with some of my family and got to witness what life is like. Completely different than what, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin, but completely different than anything we see over here. I think the thing that caught my eye the most was the marketplace. There is hundreds and hundreds of these little markets, these little stores everywhere, selling anything from chickens, live chickens, bread, to souvenirs, to clothing, to anything you can imagine that could be legally for sale is out there. I'm still in awe of it all. Now these couple of pictures really don't show it justice. The traffic, just the people traffic. It was so busy with people back and forth. You had to be careful where you're walking. It just amazing. So I got the opportunity to visit the Cairo Museum, and this is one of the things that we saw there. I don't know how in the world they move this stuff around. It weighs a ton, but what really caught my eye was the engraving on this thing. It's the workmanship is just, to me, it would be done with a laser, but people say, well, back then they didn't have lasers. I don't know. I can't imagine this was done by hand. Just truly amazing on the artwork. They have mummies. Now this one was I believe this was a clay replica, but they have other places where they have mummy. They had this is a real mummy. It's a crocodile. They mummified a crocodile. Strange. And then of course everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with the Sphinx. This is a smaller version inside the museum. Again, with these engravings on the side of this thing, it's just unbelievable, the architecture and the um, how precise everything is. And then, of course, the Great Sphinx itself. I've always wondered why it seems to be that the noses get knocked off. I can't help but wonder if that was an insult by people who came in and, through the wars and stuff. Never really got an answer. One of the guys that I heard speaking about it said, well, the nose is protruding from the face and it's probably one of the weakest parts. And that's why. But I see it even in, like I go back here, the nose on this guy got whacked off. It's the thing about noses, I guess. Um, the pyramids were unbelievable. I was 5 years old the last time I saw one. Um, I I just couldn't get over the massive amount of whatever you want to call it in front of me. It was just unbelievable. And they had guides going inside. I didn't want to go inside. I didn't care about going inside. It was really just wanted to see what it looked like from the outside. One of the capstones, again with the engraving, it's just unbelievable. This engraving, and they're trying to tell me that all this was done by hand. Well, I mean, if that's true, it's very sad because we've lost that ability to do that today by hand. We rely on machines to do. This would be, in my opinion, a laser engraving. Um, the artwork, oh my goodness, the artwork that we saw was spectacular, breathtaking. Can't describe this words. It just, unless you see it in person, it's really pictures don't do it justice. Um, and this is something I found weird. So first of all, there are no houses in Cairo. There are no houses in Cairo, and I think the population is like 20 million. Everything is a high rise, and if you look, you see the buildings are almost all the same color. How anybody finds where they're going is beyond me. It's beyond, but all the buildings are almost the same color. I guess it's because of the predominant amount of sand. If you look at the satellite dishes there, you see that they're a brownish color. They're not supposed to be that. They're supposed to be either white or it's supposed to be clean. But there's layers of sand everywhere, and I think that adds to the issue of everything just being almost the same colors. Very little color difference in comparison to other places. Um, this was very unusual. Now this is a Coptic church. The Coptic church, from what I understand, the Coptic church was the first church that Christ himself started. And there are people there called Coptic Christians, and their bloodlines go all the way back. My brother-in-law, his bloodline comes from the Pharaohs, so he knows exactly where, and he is a Coptic Christian as well. So it was an amazing experience. I can't thank God enough for allowing us to travel there and back without any issues, really, without any major issues, I should say. We got there. We had made, it was my brother and I and his wife, the three of us. We had made arrangements at one of the hotels there in London. We flew from Miami to London and from London to Cairo. So on our first trip to London, one of the hotels that we had made reservations at, we showed up and I looked at my brother and said, something's not right. This place looks like it's abandoned. And the doors were locked. Holy smokes. Then we saw somebody walking through and knocking on the door, on this glass door. And he comes to the door and we said, well, we have reservations. And he kind of looked perplexed at us. He said, we've been closed for months. We're having a renovation. So nobody told him. And they said, well, they send out emails, blah, blah, blah. That didn't happen. Fortunately, we ended up working our way around that and ended up at another hotel, and then stayed there for 3 days and witnessed some really neat stuff there. One of the churches that we saw there, the artwork on that church was just, mind blowing. I thought I did, but I guess not. I'll see if I can upload a picture. I'll show you later. Just truly geometric forms. I thought, I've seen pictures of where they take sound and they'll put sand on a platter and then they'll play sound and it creates these different forms. That's what I thought I saw at this church. It was almost like a geometric form of some sort. And then there was did I upload that? I guess I didn't upload that either. These stained glass windows. Oh my goodness. Just something to take your breath away. All of it, understanding that all of it is done by hand. So there must have been a great love for the work that they were doing because it required a lot of patience and a lot of just handwork. Um, oh, here's something that you might like this. This is, when I tell you guys the traffic was maniacal, I'm not joking. I'm really not. I like the white. I like the black. It's different. Oh, so that's where you can sit for taxi? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is it. Scratches on the mirrors. That's how close they get. Scratches on the mirrors. At the end of this video, I like the white. I like the black. It's different. Oh, so that's where you can sit for taxi? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is it. Oh, you can see. Oh my goodness. So my sister-in-law, um, she is extremely paranoid of traffic. She doesn't like traffic. So this was a nightmare. I felt bad for her. This was a night. She had to put her head down. She had to hide. She couldn't watch what was going on. She was going into a panic attack. And we would get within inches of each other, literally within. It's like I'm telling you, mirrors. They tap mirrors. This is how close they get. It's crazy. So anyway, it was a great experience. If anybody ever has the opportunity, I'd tell you, go in a heartbeat. The only drawback is it is a long trip. On the way back, so what happened originally, I flew from Ohio, which is where I'm at now, to Miami to meet my brother. That's where he lives. And then we flew from Miami to London and Heathrow Airport and stayed in London for 3 days. Then we flew to Cairo, which was about a week. And then we flew back to London, stayed there 3 days, and flew back to Miami. The last part of the trip for me was really tough because it was 9 hours coming back from London to Miami, and then it was another 2 hours coming back from Miami to Ohio. And then, of course, there was a layover. I had a layover at the airport for about 2 or 3 hours. So it strung me out. By the time I got home, it was almost 23 hours I'd been awake. But I'll tell you what, even till now, and this was 5 days, 6 days ago, even until now, it seems like it was a dream. It was just so many things to see. The marketplace, I can't tell you enough about the marketplace was such a trip. These people would come out, these men and women would come out of their little stores and come here, let me show you this. See, once they got you in the store, you're pretty well locked in. But and it was amazing. It truly was. It was amazing. It was a chance for me to kind of go over my Arabic because I had nobody to speak Arabic to, and they told me that I for where I for not being there for so long that I still they were proud of my Arabic. That was a trip. It was a real trip. Anyway, so tonight I'm going to have Arnell Lindgren with me. Arnell has a system called rebooting the internal terrain. Your health is your greatest asset. This man has developed a system through years of investigation and research, a way to help you do that. He approaches it in a completely different manner than many of the people out there that say they're health guides or health coaches. He's got a different way of explaining it, down to earth kind of thing, and I think you'll truly enjoy what he's got to say tonight. So I'm going to take a quick break. I told him I'd bring him on around 9:30, but we're going to go a little earlier tonight because I've got a lot I want to go over with him, and I can use a couple of extra minutes here. Go get the cup filled and prepare to have your mind blown with a lot of information, a lot of useful information for your health. Your greatest asset is you can have all the money in the world. If you don't have your health, I've been there where my health was breaking down. I've been there when the doctor said, you've got cancer. it's like a kick in the stomach. And if you don't know how to deal with it, but the best part is never have to deal with it ever. But once you get it, if you don't know how to deal with it, if you don't know about your body and you can't have your body's immune system fight for you, you're in a lot of trouble because you're going to be reliant on the pharmaceutical industry. And anybody who thinks that's your friend, you got a shot coming to you. Anyway, going to take a quick break. And when I come back, we'll have Arnell on. And chat rooms are open, you guys. If you have questions while we do this, you can ask questions in the chat room. I just got a new cell phone, and it's not transferring over from our phone lines yet. It's probably something I need to do in the setup all over again because I transferred files from the old phone to the new phone, but it wasn't 100%. It's like 95%. Anyway, off to the break, and we'll be back in just a minute or two. Thank you.
You're listening to the Red Pill Reality Show. We'll be right back. Check the red pill, check the blue pill, check the red pill.
I can't help but look around and feel like things are getting out of hand. We've been told to trust the science, but the science just doesn't make sense. They say it isn't mandatory, but they also say your jab or your job. But if it doesn't stop the spread, it makes it feel like this is just a facade. What about the healthcare workers? What about the frontline nurses? How quickly we forget that they were working 18 hours a day. What about informed consent? What about due diligence? It seems a country that I used to call home is surely slipping away. I can't help but look around and feel like minds are slowly starting to change. Cause even if you're triple vaccinated, know that segregation isn't the way. Freedom is a choice and it's available to all if we choose. But first things first, you gotta turn off the news. Yo, what about the healthcare workers? What about the frontline nurses? How quickly we forget that they were working 18 hours a day. What about informed consent? What about due diligence? It seems the country that I used to call home is surely slipping away. If you're late to the party, there's plenty room at the table. This side don't discriminate. I'm calling on every single man, woman, child of the able. It's time to take the streets and liberate. But please don't be a part of the problem, staying willfully ignorant, cause there's just way too much at stake. Yo, it's okay to change your mind, you can admit you were wrong, cause where there's perfect love, there ain't no shame. Heavenly Father, show me what I don't understand yet. I got my marching orders, I don't fully know the plan yet. Hold on to my Bible before bed, no it ain't banned yet. Did you know the makers of the vaccine make the Xanax? I would never lean on corporations for morality, cause they put their profits over people for their salaries. Know they wanna make you bend the knee for your normality. I know you feeling all alone, but in reality, there's way more of us than them. 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 That's the truth. There's way more of us than them. There's way more of us than them. There's way more of us. There's way more of us than them.
too far, because we have more interesting and thought-provoking information for you coming up on the Red Pill Reality Show.
All right, we are back. We'll have Arnell coming on here in just a moment. And again, we have questions. If you have questions are open, I'm just checking questions. The chat rooms are open. You can put your questions in the chat room and I'll forward them over to Arnell. And I see a couple of comments already. We'll respond to them in a moment. All right, let me get Arnell on. Let's see if he's on with me here. Are you there, my friend? I told him 9:30, so he may be waiting till 9:30. All right, no worries. We'll get him back on in a minute. In the meantime, I see a couple of comments. Answer a couple of comments. So looks like we're on Rumble. We're on the website. That's the website. We're on LinkedIn and Facebook. And of course the platform. So we're out there. We're getting there. I'm looking for Arnold to come on here in just a minute. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about him. He has a system called rebooting the internal terrain. And him and I have had several conversations. It's just extraordinary the way he goes about doing what he's doing. This started with him at a very early age in his life. He had to experience his father having a heart attack, which kind of set him off on the journey of what we're going to be discussing shortly. It's things that happen in people's lives that can truly make a change and cause you to change other people's lives. We all have a certain degree of what's the word I'm looking for? Influence, circle of influence, if you will. We all have a certain degree of circle of influence. And when we're able to help other people with providing them with stuff that's going to positive stuff, I can pump out information all day long. But sadly, much of the information that we run into nowadays is not of the greatest, it's not a positive thing. This is a positive thing. This is something that you can use. You don't have to buy a program. You don't have to, use some kind of a supplement of some sort. This is something that you can put into action right away. And again, it doesn't cost you anything but your time. See, somebody's trying to send me something. It doesn't cost you anything but your time. And when your time is invested in the right things, then you get a return. It's like if you take your money. See who's talking. He's telling me he can't seem to get his mic to work. Let's see. Okay, let's do this. Let's see if that'll work. Let's see if we can get him to sign out and then get him to sign back in, and maybe that'll straighten it out. It's always, it amazes me, especially with Peter. When I have Peter on, we'll be talking on the phone, no problem at all. As soon as I get him on the platform, as soon as I get him up here on StreamYard, it's like, no, we're not going to let Peter talk. So he's going to sign off, and then hopefully he'll sign back in, and when he comes back in, we'll have mics. All right. I can see you. Let's see if you're on. Welcome on up. There you are. I can hear you now.
My apologies.
No worries. What an honor to have you on and share with us your system. And I kind of told the listeners a little bit about rebooting the internal terrain. And so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and try to get some background, Keep getting stop that. I keep getting, oh Lord. Anyway, so how did you get started in all this? What got you inspired in doing all of this stuff? Because I read a little bit about it, and I think you said in one of your bios your dad had a heart attack.
Yeah, that's correct. I was 13, and
Oh,
attack when he was 36, and that just left a really lasting impression, and especially with my mother being a nurse, and then when we would go to the hospital and go through all those visits and whatever to try and correct some of that. But even the nurses and the doctors could never give me a straight answer. Just asking them, just straight up, how can all this happen? He's so young, 36, and even at 13, I knew that. And 36 or at 13, I was pretty heavy into athletics and was always very active. And in fact, most of my whole family was pretty active. So I just never thought that would be anything that would occur to him.
did you ever find out what the reason behind it was?
Well, I later discovered that back then in that time, drinking too much and he was a pack a day of Pall Mall smoker, and
Ooh,
that was
wow.
tough. That was really
Wow.
tough to swallow that one because, like I said, I was pretty heavily involved in athletics, and so having him as a smoker and being involved in that was a little challenging. But I never stopped him. I swear, when we would go on these long bike rides, it would amaze me the kind of endurance he still had despite his smoking.
I think it's not so much the tobacco itself as much as it is all the garbage that they put on top. I was addicted to cigarettes. I have a place in my heart for people who have an addiction, but I had to overcome it. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
I was up to about 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
By, I believe totally by the intervention of God. I had to have brain surgery in 1985. And back then you could smoke. I was in a hospital. You could smoke in the hospital. You smoke anywhere. It was just accepted, like drinking water out, and it's just accepted everywhere. And I had my surgery, and I was in ICU for 7 days. And then after getting out, I remember saying to the nurse, I want my cigarettes, I want my ashtray, I want my lighter. And she looked at me with a look that would kill. And she said, you don't need them, and walked off. And I said a nasty word. But then about 15 minutes later, she came walking in with the stuff that I asked for. And she walked off. And I just kept remembering her look at me and say, you don't need them. And I started thinking, well, it's been 7 days without a cigarette. I'll just go another hour. And then it was a week, and then it was a month. And before I knew it, it's a year. But it was tough. It was really tough because there was always that urge to go back and smoke. And sadly, that's what ended up killing my dad was the cigarettes.
Sure. And there's a long history and around cigarettes. I mean, a lot of the technology that went into that when they were kind of the tobacco industry was caught with their essentially hands in the cookie jar. They were caught with spraying intentionally over 500 different excitotoxins that essentially create addiction. And that all came from the researchers and scientists from the Nazi regime. And was brought. Yeah. I mean, it's deep, and as we go along here, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak candidly about some of the things I really discovered the last 30 years. But some of your listeners, with no offense or anything, but sometimes in order to really hear something new and different, you may have to suspend some of your beliefs at the moment and really understand or listen to what someone else is lenses are looking at, and how, in this case, looking at biology. And biology is looking at all the layers of life, meaning plant, animal, and human. And we all have a common thread. And that's kind of what I want to really go through today. So, you know, I like your analogy of the red pill. And you want the red pill or you want the blue pill. You can live in ignorant bliss, or you can really live in reality. And for me, you know, I don't per se have any special talent or skill, but I know I have an understanding. I have a pretty strong engineering background. I'm able to put things together and understand things very quickly. And I feel that, in a sense, that talent was able to really help me sift through a lot of the narratives today, which are, I will just say, fundamentally flawed in biology.
Much of it has been, and look at the roots. When you look at the roots, that can tell you why. And we have the Rockefellers that are responsible for much of this. And the whole reason that they introduced what they introduced was, I believe, in my opinion, was two things. Number one, I guess the root of it all is power. But number one was control, and the other one was greed. They make all kinds of money off of these things that they call medicine that they can patent, and then they have the right to sell it. And if someone else sells it, they can have to pay them a royalty or they get sued. So it's kind of a closed, captured market, if you will.
Yeah, and that is a big part of it too. That started during the scientific revolutions in the mid 1800s, and Rockefeller was already embarking on the idea of his narrative was, well, why not just take a pill for all your ailments?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he was already embarking on that, so he just needed a carrier of that idea, and that's enter Louis Pasteur. And Pasteur was already in cahoots with two French biologists. One was René Quinton, which we're going to talk about later, and then the other one was Anton Béchamp. And there are other ones like Claude Bernard and Ferdinand Kahn, and I will get into what each individual really contributed to understanding what I look at today is really the red pill. Because when Rockefeller then essentially his money with Carnegie then decided to incorporate the AMA. Oddly, I'm sure you'll know this, the same year that they incorporated the Federal Reserve in 1913. You know, since then, the narrative has changed. And this is the crazy part, Riscalla. The only thing that's changed is the narrative. But biology itself, from its primordial beginnings, hasn't changed at all.
Wow.
Our origins, and I'll get into that later, it just hasn't changed. So therefore, when you understand the shorts, and I'll give you all the kind of the short story of evolution, when you understand that, hopefully that you really listen to your heart and really open yourself up to the possibility that our current science today may have just missed something.
Oh yeah,
and
I agree.
Say it's just fundamentally flawed, because when you understand real biology, organic biology, it's not based on everything that we've been sold, the idea that that's how it works.
Mm-hmm. And I believe that it's been missed on purpose because it doesn't help a certain group of people.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely been intentional, and I have compassion and I try and hold a safe space for people to speak openly about some of the challenges, and I've seen some of the worst challenges out there than working with people. And I just said, wow, it just breaks my heart, some of the things that people have to go through. And the crazy part is that you have the arrogance of the medical community who continue to this day still push that same narrative. And I don't remember who it was. I think it was Isaac Newton that the quote was, "We can automate automobiles, but or standardize automobiles, but we can't. We shouldn't be standardizing human beings."
Hmm.
And when you understand that quote and you look at the medical system, everything is standardized.
Standardized. Yeah.
I
This is
mean,
one of the arguments that I had. So I had to have heart surgery a while back. I had to put a stent in my heart, and they were saying, well, your blood pressure should be blah blah over blah blah. And I said,
right?
where do you get that number? Well, that's the average. Average for who?
Yeah,
What might be
exactly.
good for you is not good for me. That was my argument. And they had this grocery list of pills that they wanted me to take. I looked at the doctor in the eye and I said, my doctor's right there. They see me coming and go, oh my God, here he comes. Anyway, I looked at him. I said, I'm only going to do this for a year. And then after that, I'm only going to take one. I'm going to take one for the blood pressure, and I will not be taking that for long. I've been on it now for a couple of years. I'm getting ready to get off. I've made my mind up that part of the issue is I've been irresponsible with my eating habits, and so I put on a lot of weight, probably another 30 pounds that I shouldn't have. And once I get rid of that, I believe the blood pressure will come down. That's the only thing I need is blood pressure. All this other stuff about statins and all, I would not take it. They offered to me again just a couple of months ago. I said, no, I'm not taking it. Oh, well, then you're going to die of a heart attack. Well, if I take it, I'm going to die of liver failure. So give me a
Right.
choice. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm curious about this thing called, what do we call it? Dark field microscopy. Microscopy, is that correct word?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Dark field microscopy is the technical
Microscopy.
term.
Okay.
Yeah, and the layman's version is just a live blood cell analysis. So when you look at, let's say, blood testing and histology today, they'll pull a sample, and the first thing they do is they separate the plasma and the blood, and so they'll spin it, and then the blood is what they test. And what I always say is that the blood is not actually the most important aspect of it. It's actually what's in the plasma. And but they always discard that. So you know, why are they doing that? So you know, for there's a treatment called plasmapheresis. And that's kind of an interesting one because it's kind of the same thing where they'll pull out your blood, separate the plasma, and reinfuse your blood. And again, I just feel that, you know, based on my findings, that's actually incorrect. Now, if you really want to understand what Bruce Lipton talks about in his work out of Stanford, and he's the one who really coined a lot of the terms of, let's say, DNA expression. DNA expression is based on delivering quantum fields. It's not based on the idea of calories. We're told the narrative is if you want energy, you have to deliver calories. You have to consume a certain amount of calories. In fact, you know, I've done a little traveling here the last few weeks myself, and I was just up in the Midwest, and I'm just astounded how many people are not just overweight, but how many people are just so unhealthy. And it saddens me because it doesn't have to be this way.
I agree.
And you know, you've heard the definition of what's the definition of insanity? Keep doing things over and over again, expecting different results, and the idea that we have to count calories in order to create energy and longevity. Clearly, that model isn't working. All you have to do for the last 100 years is to look at the side effects and the results of that. So, and when in this case, when I'm saying that is that when we approach biology, it is based on, as I said earlier, fundamentally flawed science, simply because when you look at the history of science, you've had these past contemporaries really understanding the difference between, let's say it used to be vitality versus reductionism. So we looked at the body as being very vital, but today everything is based on reductionistic science. So what does that really mean? So reductionism just simply means is that you're looking at the whole and then you're plucking it apart. When you figure out all the features and benefits of all the different isolates that make up the whole, and if there's added value in some of those isolates, they'll figure out how to recreate it synthetically, and now they'll place a patent on it, and now they control it. So let's just give an example of what that really looks like in real time. When you look at, let's say, a whole orange, an orange is synonymous to the marketing, let's just say, vitamin C. Now, the short history on vitamin C is that it was Kashmir Funk and Elvis St. George who discovered vitamin C, but they didn't discover it in an orange. They actually discovered it in paprika. And when you look at these items in let's say the paprika, it's about 1,500 chemicals that make up paprika. So why is one far more superior than the other 1,499? Now, the narrative in science today is that we have this vitamin C, and you need to take 250 to 500 milligrams in order for it to be effective. So that statement to the unknown eye and ear can be, oh, wow, okay, this is what I should be taking. This is what Rockefeller was talking about. I want to just take a pill for all the ailments to go away, right?
Right.
But this is what actually happens in biology when you actually take a synthetic form. When you take 500 milligrams ascorbic acid vitamin C, the problem is that your body is then forced to recreate what nature had intended. And nature has always intended for you to take nutrients in via through a whole food, meaning all the other original proteins and compounds and enzymes are originally attached to it in its original state. Right? Now, this isn't just me or Nell saying this. This has been very well documented, and actually, I believe I told you this was awarded a Nobel Prize in 1999 by a scientist named Gunther Blobel. And he was head of Rockefeller Research, oddly. But he won a Nobel Prize for proving essentially the whole is far better than the part. So it simply means that when you take 500 milligrams ascorbic acid vitamin C, you're forcing your body to recreate nature. So therefore, you're forcing your body to produce what is known as protein chaperones. He called it protein chaperones, Blobel. And when you do that to an already deficient mineral body, then what you're doing is you're actually placing a larger burden on your system. So therefore, you will only utilize 1.5 to 3%, maybe less, of that 500 milligrams. The rest is either going to be stored as an endotoxin, or your body has the ability to eliminate it. It all depends on the individual's constitution. Like I said earlier, there's no cookie cutter. Everybody's different because everybody's upbringing in foods, everybody's exposure to different environments is different, etc., etc. That's what makes us unique, right? And so there is no standard, quote unquote, in my opinion, of human health. You know, when I work with someone, I take time to really tap in and understand who they are, where they come from, some of their history, and et cetera, et cetera. So when you take, going back to this, when you take a whole food vitamin C, let's just say, your body will utilize the entire vitamin C. So in other words, in nature, everything comes together as a whole. That's what actually holistic health simply means. You're delivering the whole versus the part.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spell that out even in more detail down as we continue to talk. But this is a really important part, because when Blobel won that Nobel Prize, the entire industry of the natural product industry and vitamins should have shifted, but it didn't.
Because it's
Why?
based on money, based on greed
Well,
and money. Let
well,
me
yeah,
ask you this.
yeah.
It's from what you described. If I were to take 500 milligrams, if somehow take 500 milligrams from oranges or from paprika
Mhm.
versus 500 milligrams in a pill, the 500 milligrams I would be getting from the paprika or from the orange would be much more absorbable to my body, far more absorbable than the synthetic. Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct. So, in other words, in an organic orange, there's typically between 30, naturally occurring between 30 and 60 milligrams in an organic orange. Okay. Now, if you ate that whole organic orange, you would be able to utilize it until, let's say, 60 milligrams. Versus if you just took 500, you're going to utilize less than 1.5 to 3% of that 500.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been very well documented and awarded Nobel Prizes, and that's part of the problem with kind of the Rockefeller Carnegie system is, this was back in 1912, and what's his name, Abraham Flexner. He released a report. Of course, it was all paid for by the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, but what people don't realize is that he was hired to write an entire essay paper to convince the world that the new medical system that they were about to usher in is the truth, and anything outside of that is pseudoscience, which is why you have so much of the alternative industry that has been demonized, that doesn't conform to the ideals of the Rockefeller system.
They're a very powerful group. Very, very powerful.
They are indeed. Yeah, they are indeed. And it's challenging, and the thing is it's this, what's called, I don't really consider myself to have any real special talent in all this, but what I'm bringing to the table is that early on in my studies, I decided not to go the conventional route, because there was one author who really changed everything for me. His name is Fritjof Capra. And Capra got me to understand that when you see something in front of you as a living entity, what you're not looking at is all the systems below it to support that entity. So he got me to really understand that there are multiple systems that support what you see as the finished product. Okay, so when you look at the human body, it's not just the human body. It's not just a bunch of protein and cells. I mean, when you look at cells, there's nothing more than 20 proteins, right? 20 amino acids. But what really drives those amino acids is really the question. What really drives a cell to actually carry out its duties? And when you really look at cells, they're nothing more than physical structures. And those structures are looking for their P's and Q's within the internal terrain. And that's where I want to focus my kind of conversation with you. What does the internal terrain really look like? And why is that so significant, especially today more than ever? Because as we said earlier, and now, the definition of insanity, you can't keep going based on this reductionistic model and try and fix all these problems based on reductionism, and then come up with another reductionistic solution to fix a problem that was based on reductionistic science in the first place. You know, and I believe that was Newton who actually said that. You know, and that's the problem, is that you have scientists and doctors who think they're going to take something and they're going to keep distilling it down. They're going to keep, it's like looking down the dark hole and going, you know, I know God's in there somewhere. We're going to find that God particle, and it's going to all of a sudden appear out of somewhere.
But, and why? Why is it they want to find it? See, that's where I have the issue. They don't want to find it so much as the priority is about making money. Okay, if people get better, that's fine. But as long as we can make money and have control, that's
Yeah.
why they're looking for these things. Where when I've dealt with, I have several friends of mine who deal with their health holistically. I'm not one who cares much for doctors. I know they have their place in this world. I'm thankful for them because I've had to have brain surgery. Without that, I probably would not be around today. I had to have heart surgery. You know, without that, I would not have. You know, but all the other stuff, I don't go for. When I had cancer, my doctor, he just puts his hand over his, his forehead. He goes, "Oh my God, here he comes. He's not going to listen to anything I got to say." And I don't. I let them give me the spiel, and then I say thank you, but I'll take care of it on my own, and which I've done on 2 different occasions.
Yeah.
So understanding where they believe totally 100%. They believe because they've been trained to believe what they have to offer is the best. And if you question that, then there's something wrong with you to question that. This thing about when the big COVID thing was going, don't question the science or something along that line. Well, that's what science is. It's meant to be questioned. When somebody comes up with a theory of some sort and says, well, this is the way that this works, then other people say, okay, well, let me see if I can duplicate what they did. They're questioning what so anytime that I run across this where you can't question it, right off the bat, the light goes off in my head. And that's one of the things that I saw in speaking with you, that you are the questioner. Why is this the way that it is? Not accepting. Okay, well, like we said earlier, one pill for everybody. That's not necessarily the way that it should be. And I appreciate that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you share tonight your experience and what you've found out with all the years of research that you've done and the life experience that you've had, in hopes that it will help open other people's eyes and help them.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that, and I think one of the stories I really want to start off with by really getting people to understand is I'm it's going to be a short tangent, I promise you that, but I'm not going to get into the complexity of all of it, but I'll get into enough to hopefully paint a picture in people's eyes and their mind, and going, huh. And what I call it is the short story of evolution. So you look at the planet, it's about 4.6 billion years old. Right? And anybody questions that, you can look at the fossil records, they have it. And during the beginnings of that, it was very heated. So it was a lot of hot molten lava. So many of the different forms of bacteria couldn't innovate and continue evolving at that time. So what scientists believe, what they refer to as the late heavy great bombardment, and this is when asteroids and meteorites and comets then delivered ice and water to the planet, which then cooled the planet. It gave the other both anaerobic and aerobic type microbes to then be innovative and create. And over a period of time, and I'm saying millions of years, they started creating their first form of life forms underwater, which is the spongy forms and coral reefs and et cetera, and at some point the first terrestrial based organism jumped from the ocean and onto the landmass, and that first organism was actually called the plant kingdom. Then that evolved for millions of years, right, which then created the basis for the next species to show up, and then that was the animal kingdom, which showed up and then developed for millions of years. And then guess what? We finally showed up. So we're at the top of that evolution. So I asked you, Riscalla, what's the common thread between all the levels of biology?
I'm all ears. Tell me.
So all DNA is coded for trace elements.
Say
It
that
doesn't
again.
matter if you're
Say it
all
again.
all DNA is coded for trace elements.
For
So that
trace
means
elements.
trace elements, meaning minerals.
Yeah.
Ocean water, most of you have never heard this. Ocean water is the only liquid on the planet that is an aqueous solution of the entire periodic table of elements. That includes all the primary elements and all the secondary elements. And current science tells us, and there's a number of very popular podcasters who they range anywhere from, your body only utilizes 43 trace elements and up to 53 trace elements. Some of them are saying, and I'm telling you, if we are from the planet itself and we have part of this within us, and that our evolution, and of course religious people are going to hate me for saying this, is our origins are from the ocean, it'd be silly for us to imagine we did not bring part of the ocean with us. So that means, again, all DNA, whether you're a plant, an animal, or human, is coded for trace elements. That is your foundation. Okay?
I'm curious when you say animals and such. The human body is what, like 70 or 80% water?
So I mean, yeah, about a little over 70, about 73.
And so, what about animals? What do you have any idea what percentage? Are they similar to humans, where they have a high percentage of water in their body?
Yeah, I mean, all animals and all different forms of biology are going to have different percentages of water.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say for humans, out of 100%, there's a little less than 4% that is made up of completely trace elements, meaning your body. There's a little less than 4% of your body that's made up of all trace elements. But guess what? That 4% controls every chemical reaction that occurs in your body. And let me just give you the gravity of that. The average person has 50 trillion cells. Now, I'm going to ask you to tell me this number after I give this to you. 50 trillion cells. Every cell is producing 100,000 chemical reactions every second.
Holy smokes.
So give me that number.
50
you can't
trillion?
say. 50 trillion cells.
And how many per cell is, say that?
So, yeah, so there's 50 trillion cells that make up the average person.
Uh-huh.
Each cell produces 100,000 chemical reactions every second.
Holy smokes. Wow.
Think about that.
Wow.
Okay. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, this has been very well documented with multiple people. I'll source Bruce Lipton. He'll say the same thing. It's just the level of complexity that goes on in biology is far more complex than what modern day science is telling you. Modern day science is, as you said and alluded to earlier, is all about control. It's not about liberation. In science, a true scientist will sit on the sidelines and be an observer first. Modern day science, they say they want this outcome. So what they do is they come up with these randomized clinical studies, but what people don't realize that all the tests are set up and designed to create the outcome they desire, so they can patent
it. Yeah.
That's not how biology works.
Reminds me of the PCR test that they had during the COVID, designed to fail.
Yeah.
And the more revolutions you gave it, the more COVID you had. They were testing things like pig hairs and were coming up positive with COVID.
Yeah.
So it's like you're saying, it's designed. It's in the design, and it's designed for a specific outcome. And as long as they can get that outcome, then they continue with the
Yeah.
greed and the power.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to the story of evolution, I wanted to start there so that people really understand part of the basis of what we're really going to get into, and that is talking about terrain. And I mentioned a name earlier. Her name is Evo St. Georgie, and Georgie was the one who discovered vitamin C in paprika. But one of the individuals that I got to meet and study his work, and he's also from Hungary. His name is Andy Saleh, and we called him Andy, but his name is Andrew Saleh. And when he transplanted from Hungary after working with St. Georgie to the U.S., he continued his studies, and this is actually a really cool story that I really love telling, because it gets people to understand a little bit more about the natural product industry, and that it's actually not so natural as everybody thinks. So Andy's story is that he understood what St. Georgie was doing, and that means that he was plucking apart the whole, and he was placing patents on something that was synthetic, that was identified in the whole, but the whole thing was crystallized vitamin C. There was nothing natural about it, right? So when Andy understood this, it's like basically you're plucking apart nature, but how do we actually reinfuse nature or renature something, in this case, so that we can mimic nature? And so what Andy figured out based on that is that how do I deliver renatured nutrients in a pill? And what he was able to really understand, everything could go through a fermentation process. So he figured out how to essentially feed microbes USP nutrients, and their byproduct would end up being a whole food vitamin C. So what was known as protein chaperones, I guess I was referring to earlier with Gunter Blobel's work, the Nobel Prize in '99, and that is, you have the vitamin C, but you also have all the protein chaperones that were originally connected to it as in nature. So your body doesn't have the burden of having to create protein chaperones. Everything is there, just like nature had intended. And that was one of the things that Andy really, really understood. And that's that, like, he took away from his studies with Georgie. Okay, we're going to make something and place a patent on it so we can make money, which is wonderful. All more power to you. But we want to be able to also tell the truth. And the truth is that there's nothing natural about ascorbic acid vitamin C.
They want you to think it's natural.
Yeah, they want you to think it's natural.
They throw that vitamin C. It's vitamin C. Well, where's it from?
Right. So in the natural product industry, what a lot of practitioners, and no offense to anyone specific, but a lot of practitioners, they push this, but it's science. And I'm sure you've heard that, but it's science. It's like, but it's manipulated science. It's fundamentally flawed science. And this is actually a great kind of takeaway right now. And that is what Andy really understood is that, and anybody who's interested in reading it, there are intrinsic nutrients or energy fields that are connected to vitamin C that are essential to delivering it to the proper ports at every cell within the body. And if those intrinsic nutrients aren't connected to the original vitamin C, then the likelihood of you being able to utilize the vitamin C is little to none. And that's how nature had intended it. Nature did not intend to deliver a chemical isolate. Nature always was delivering it through food. That is really, really important to understand. And I don't want to just pick on vitamin C. It's everything across the board. Whether it's vitamin D, whether it's vitamin E, and most of the B vitamins out there, it's the same across the board. So Andy then, through his research and understanding how to do these fermentation, he started a company in New Jersey called Grow Company. Grow Company ended up being a manufacturer of raw material that was all whole food based, and he was one of the few companies out there that was actually doing something like that. Everybody was based on quantity, like vitamin C, like the kind of that Texas thing. It's like, oh, it's 1,000 milligrams. It's even better for you, and in fact, it's actually worse for you.
It's full of fillers.
Yeah,
You're taking one of those hard pills, because I've seen it in capsules, I've seen it in pills. You're taking one of those hard pills. It's full of fillers. I don't know how much vitamin C in it.
Yeah, fillers, binders, you name it, and. And that's the thing. That's one of the things that Andy really wanted to avoid. And he was born in, I believe, in 1920, not that long ago. Disincarnated in 2016, and I tell you, it's just too bad. And even in his lifetime, the contribution he had to human biology, that it just didn't get out there enough. Because again, as you mentioned earlier, the Rockefeller money is just so powerful, and again, they just
not going forward.
Yeah, and it's people just keep hiding behind the science. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've had multiple conversations, very technical conversations, and ones that have been indoctrinated into the idea of they've been told the truth. In their schooling with PhDs and whatever, but yet they can't understand this basic biology. And this is why. When you look at reductionistic model of science, which is what I call the Newtonian philosophy. Okay, he was a crowning achievement of Galileo and Descartes and all these guys who contemporaries prior to him started doing all this work, but Newton's idea was a crowning achievement. And this was the thing, is that they distilled it down to essentially looking at the physical characteristics of the protein. And when you look at it through that lens, all you're looking at is the physical part of the cell. But you're not addressing what really drives the cell. And this is what I refer to the unforeseen forces. And what are those unforeseen forces? Well, it's the presence of God, it's the presence of soul and spirit, and unforeseen forces. And that is ultimately what drives a DNA. So this is when you hear me saying DNA expression. This is what drives DNA. It's not a calorie. Calories have nothing to do with it. In fact, when we were having our first kind of short conversation, I brought up the word calories, and you brought something up that most people have no idea. And do you remember what that was?
The telomeres?
The what?
The telomeres? I don't recall.
No, about the calories. Remember what calories was originally used for? The word. Calories was born from the measure of steam in a locomotive.
Right. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with DNA expression.
It was an expression of heat.
Yes. So to this day, you still look it up, and it's basically taking 1 liter of water and raising it by one Fahrenheit, 1 Celsius, and that's your definition of calories. So tell me, really, ultimately, by raising the temperature of water has anything to do with DNA expression? And again, going back on the definition of insanity, this is what people are still doing because they've been so convinced that counting calories, is really the key to health and longevity. When all you have to do is look around you for the past 100 years and again see the results of that.
Yeah.
See, people just have this thing where they don't want to step outside that comfort zone. I'm you could say all sorts of things, but people have their own ideas about it, and they think they know, and then it's a lot of God bless some of the people I got to study with, and many of the things I got to learn from them, and including Gunter Borbell, who won a Nobel Prize, and including Andy and some of these luminaries that it was always very fascinating to me, as I was coming up through all this, that the one question I always ask is, how can someone know so much information but can't represent that information, that understanding, that knowledge, just the basic kind of being a role model of all of that information. And it always really fascinated me, when I was really starting to understand here more and more about biology and more about clinical nutrition. So I made it a big mission. It's one of my favorite quotes by Bruce Lee. It said, "It's not enough to know, you must apply." And that was the thing, is a lot of these people I studied with, they knew intellectually, but they rarely applied.
When you mentioned Bruce Lee, I don't know if it was Bruce or his son. This one particular one thing that he said that really stuck out in my mind. He said, "You have to be like coffee, because when coffee mixes with anything, it turns whatever anything is into coffee. You mix coffee with water,
Yeah.
your coffee, and then whatever you put the coffee in, whether it's in a cup, whether it's in a glass, whether it's in a bottle, it conforms to whatever situation that is put into. So you have to be like coffee." I don't know if that was from a movie or something, but I thought it just stuck out in my mind so well. Now, in evidence of what you're saying regarding the whole, treating the thing of the whole, I'll see if I can look it up while we're on. There's a lady that lives in Miami. She is about 80 some odd years old. She looks like she's 40. When she's out with her husband gets dirty looks because her husband looks like he's 80 and she looks like she's 40. And they're giving the husband the dirty looks, thinking, "Now, what are you doing with this young lady?" And they don't realize they're both the same age. What she did is she ate whole foods all of her life. Her friends made fun of her early on because she wouldn't do what they were doing. She was growing her own food and eating whole foods. And as a result of that, her aging process has been greatly diminished.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. And this is going to be kind of like a think. Many of your listeners are going to go, "What?" And that is, we are literally. When I say this, I always love to watch people's reaction. We are literally the only species on the planet that counts calories. We are literally the only species on the planet that has this idea that we need to create a sterile world. We're literally the only species on the planet that thinks that we need to cook our food all the time in order to eat.
And that removes a lot of the nutrients in the cooking.
It does. And by no means am I saying that you need to be a vegan or a raw foodist. I mean, if you follow the story of evolution, that means in evolution we have within our DNA makeup, we have the plant kingdom and we have the animal kingdom within us. So it's not about, in my personal opinion, professional experience, it's not about being extremism of vegetarian or being a carnivore. It's about really creating a balance between the two of them and understanding what food is really delivering. Food is a physical form of delivering a quantum field. The quantum field is what ultimately gives DNA expression. So it's really based on quality rather than quantity, because our entire system is based on quantity. And we can just see where ultimately where that has led. So when you understand it from that point of view, that means that your focus then is on, okay, if we understand that the quantum field is what delivers, or we can refer to them as I referred earlier, is those unforeseen forces. If that is truly what creates DNA expression, so then what does that really look like for kind of the modern day eater? Because not everybody has the luxury of having their own garden or has access to all the best things besides going to Costco and eating that food. I won't even talk about most of that food there. But to create proper DNA expression is based on not only the quantum field, but where is the quantum field being delivered from? It's from the internal terrain. I said that earlier. And the internal terrain is kind of the governing agency of every cell within the body. Remember what I was saying earlier, how many chemical reactions occur in the human body? Well, the human internal terrain is the governing agency of all of those chemical reactions.
So would that be kind of like a roadway? The cleaner the roadway is, the faster you can go?
Yeah. So let me give you an example, kind of a modern day example that people can wrap their head around. When you don't get the results of certain things, whether it's recovery, let's say distill it down to an athlete, they say recovery. And when I was coming up in the ranks and through athletics, and I wasn't always able to gain the muscle, my coaches would always say, well, you're not eating enough protein. You got to eat more protein. You got to eat more protein. And that intuitively never made sense to me. So I kept on digging in and asking that question, what is really the answer? Well, now here you fast forward here today, and they're still saying the same thing. It's always about protein. So the carnivores will tell you it's all about protein, right? Whether it's a chemical isolate, again, the isolate, whether it's, let's say, soy protein isolate, whey protein isolate, or vegan rice protein isolate, they're still chemical isolates. That's the key, is to understand there's nothing whole about any of that protein. But the issue isn't, you want to look at it from this point. The issue is that we are, as a culture, are not deficient in consuming protein. Right? Think about that. There's a lot. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Whether you're eating eggs, whether you're eating meat or fish or chicken, we're not a culture that's deficient in eating protein. We are a culture that is deficient in having the ability to create chemical reactions, to utilize the protein. It's not a protein deficiency. It's a protein insufficiency of being able to utilize the protein. In order for your body to utilize protein, it needs to make thousands of chemical reactions. And remember what I said earlier, every cell has to produce 100,000 chemical reactions every second. Where does that come from? The terrain is the governing agency of all of that. Right? It's not about the amount of protein. I mean, to give you a little insight for myself, I have maybe 6-8 ounces of some form of protein. That's it. And I only eat once a day. That's it. You don't need that much.
We've been conditioned to believe that we have to have breakfast. That's the most important. You have to have breakfast.
Well,
And then, of course, you can't skip lunch. You have to have lunch.
Yeah.
And then there's a snack in between that. And don't
Right.
forget dinner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I always like to tease about that one because that was the cunning eye of what was his name? Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And in 1928, he was hired by a bacon and sausage company to sell more bacon and sausage. And so he was the one, get this, he was the one who coined the idea that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. To sell more bacon and more sausage.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Wow.
And so we have, again, this idea that we need to get up and we need to eat breakfast and we need to have lunch and we need to have dinner. But, ever since he started that, then the rest of the food companies went on and adopted,
Heck yeah, more food, more money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. When you develop a well-balanced internal terrain, and we'll get to that more on rebooting the system, you don't really need actually a lot of food. Most people don't realize that, but they're so conditioned to think that they still need that 3 square meals a day, when in fact you don't.
Have you ever heard of, what were they called? Sun eating. Have you ever heard that term? Sun eating.
Well, yeah, I mean, the most important part of the day to absorb sun is from 7 a.m. to about 9 a.m. And that is that the sun, despite what ophthalmologists and dermatologists convince everybody is not toxic for you, it's actually it's extremely important to get that through your eyes on a daily basis.
The reason I say the sun eating, there are people, and they've done research on these kids, 2 of them that I know of that I've seen on video. One of them is a gentleman with dark skin. The other one was a lady. And they look at the sun, I don't know, for 10 or 15 minutes when it first comes up, something like that. They don't eat food. They haven't eaten food in years. Their energy comes from the energy of the sun. So that came to mind when you said you don't need to eat that much. Well, these people don't eat anything.
Yeah.
And they rarely drink water. And the one man with the dark skin, they put him under observation for 2 weeks. He didn't drink or eat anything and had one minor movement of urine, and that was it.
Yeah.
So they're getting the energy from the sun, and they're able to utilize that energy in their body and have their body assimilate to that energy. That just came to mind when you said you don't need that much. These people don't need nothing, So that's a when you say you don't need that much, that's a fact that people are living on literally nothing but sun.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. What I refer to is magnetism, and magnetism is that there's a lot of talk, and in fact, where you just came from Egypt, there, how the pyramids were built was actually based on technology that used the natural fabric of the planet. And the natural fabric of the planet is really about magnetism, meaning cosmic energy coming from dark matter and also the sun. But then that's a projector, but what's the receiver? Well, the planet is gravitational pull, so that means the planet is the receiver. And in between there's a fabric, what they call this free energy, and this is what Tesla, Victor Schomburger all talked about. And the common theme is, and this is what I really want your listeners to really understand, is that the common theme is that it's about energy. It's not about what we've been told. Like, we've already defined what calories is. Calories has nothing to do with DNA expression because it's not energy. There's nothing energy. There's, like, if you eat a Dorito that's or some kind of a highly processed food that's a bunch of chemicals put together, and then they put a calorie count on it, they think that that's actually going to deliver energy when in fact it's actually not. It's actually depleting your body.
Yeah.
You see, because
Let me ask you something, because you've said this several times now. DNA expression.
yeah,
You've used that term several times. So for anybody out there who doesn't really understand, what importance is there, or what does the DNA expression do? Is that everything in your body? Is that
that's
like
every that's every cell in your body. Meaning how how cells actually express themselves. So cells are essentially nothing more than structures, protein structures, but they're actually looking for their P's and Q's based on quantum fields that are delivered via through the internal terrain.
Okay.
And what does that really look like? You know, meaning, remember what we said earlier, the story of evolution. The story of evolution is about all DNA is coded for trace elements. Well, what do trace elements do? Trace elements provide each one of them. If we know that, again, our origins are from the ocean, and the ocean water is the only liquid on the planet that's an aqueous solution of the entire periodic table of elements. It's important to really understand that, because scientists have convinced us we're only utilizing 43, or some people are only saying 50 something, when in fact you're actually utilizing the entire periodic table of elements, and only God knows how to use them. There's no one that I've ever met, based on almost 40 years in this industry, that has been able to track the complexity of how your body utilizes trace elements. No one, not even a supercomputer, has been able to really understand and track
Wow.
that. Because this is the thing. When you take, let's just say, it's just no different than what we were talking about whole foods. And that is, when you take, let's say, calcium commingles with 11 other trace elements in order for your body to even utilize calcium properly. You can't just take calcium by itself. You can't just take magnesium by itself. Every trace element is designed to commingle with other trace elements. Why? Because what it's actually doing in the terrain is creating a quantum field. Right? And so that means trace elements are bouncing off each other, and in between all that, you are developing or delivering this quantum field. In fact, I encourage you, if you're in front of your computer right now, Riscalla, is go on to Google and then just punch in mineral wheel.
Mineral wheel. Okay.
Yes. And that will give you a perfect example of what I just said.
Wow.
Do you see that crisscrossing back and forth?
Good gravy. Yeah.
That is the quantum field I am referring to. That is suspended in your internal terrain. What is your internal terrain made of? Mainly water. Okay? Exactly. The image on the right, that is a perfect picture of what the mineral wheel and what the quantum field looks like.
Wow.
Okay? See? So, when you understand that, that is what your cells are drawn from, that quantum field. So when you look at it in individual foods, that's what you're delivering. Each food, each DNA in food is different. So they require different nutrients in varying degrees and varying levels. But ultimately, they're all still commingling, meaning they're interdependent and interconnected. Right? And that's what's really important to understand nutrition. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. What kind of quality nutrients? I keep referring back to the human species. Like we're the only ones that are convinced that everything in food consumption is based on quantity,
Yeah.
and rather than quality. We're the only ones that consume 3 meals a day. We're literally the only species that does that. Every other species on the planet eats once a day.
If they're lucky. Yeah. If they're lucky. Yeah.
They're lucky. And sometimes they don't get to eat for a week and they're still
Right.
thriving, right? So
there is an advantage to doing that. People may not realize that, but it has been shown that when you go into a fasting mode, your body begins to rid itself of all the bad cells. I can't remember the autophagy or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the term, but your body begins to get rid of the bad stuff. So maybe you were designed to do that. Maybe we're not designed to have 3 meals a day where we're constantly keeping our body in a state of inflammation and wondering why we're sick all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the goals I really wanted coming on here is really to get people to understand the very thing that we're talking about: eat based on quality versus quantity, and that means looking at nutrition from a different set of lenses, and that is just looking at it from a quantum field point of view rather than a counting calorie kind of thing. And there's along the way I got to study again. I go back to some of these people I really got to study with, and either study with them or definitely study the work. But some of the ones in the past, of course, Gunther Blobel was a really key guy that I got to study and his work and his Nobel Prize in 1999. But another one who came out of Europe, her name is Annie McLaren, and I think she was born in 1927, and she really was able to demonstrate and actually back up what Blobel was actually talking about. And this is where it gets complex again. Delivering, this is probably the first time I've said this in this conversation, but delivering a single field versus a whole field. So again, going back to the analogy of the vitamin C. So you're delivering a simple chemical isolate called vitamin C, ascorbic acid vitamin C, or you're going to deliver the whole orange and deliver a complete field. See? So her work was in developmental biology, meaning how she was one of the first to really understand how to do artificial insemination, and through all the work she did with fetuses and fertilizing females and etc. She went on to really understand that, and one of her key, what I really understood from some of her work is cells express themselves best when they are delivering a full field again rather than a single field, and that's just like most people just have no idea what that really means and understand that when it comes to overall cellular expression. I'll just refer to, and then when you go on even further in some of the work, and some of the guys that studied, Victor Schomburger is another one. Schomburger, out of Austria, he was one that really supported the ideas of living system, which again goes back to what I was talking to about Fritjof Capra. And Capra was able to understand, or get people to really understand that what you see in front of you is a finished product, but what you don't really see is what's actually below all of it. And that's really important to understand. What's below all of it in biology, what we don't see is all of those unforeseen forces that I keep referring to. And that's, again, going back to the internal terrain. So the internal terrain is a complex subject, let's call it. Not a lot of people heard about it and have heard anything about it, but it really started back with a French biologist. His name is Anton Béchamp. And Béchamp was the one who really got to understand that there's something happening in life that most biologists are not getting. He coined a term called microzyma, and microzyma is essentially the start point. And this is, again, I keep referring to this and saying this, but this is where it gets complex, and I'm going to really try and distill it down as simple as I can and as quickly as I can. But what Béchamp was able to understand is that there is a start point, right, in life, meaning what he referred to as the bacterial life cycle. And this is the start point is what he referred to is a microzyma, meaning a tiny enzyme. But what was interesting is that this tiny microzyma has no DNA and no nucleus. Now, when you look at contemporary biology, they'll be like, well, that's impossible. How is it moving? All right? Wouldn't you say that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if that is the start point, what is it exactly? Well, remember we were talking about magnetism. Magnetism meaning there's a projector. The sun is one of those projectors. Then we have the receiver, which is then the planet. Right? These are the two domains that come together that make up a microzyma, this tiny enzyme. Think about that. That shows up in your blood. Conventional wisdom says, oh, that's just waste matter. What are you talking about? That's nothing. Right? But this is the primordial start of the entire bacterial life cycle. Right? So, if that's the start point, then how do we get to where we are today? So, in my training with Darkfield, one of the things that I always asked is my teachers are very good, very adamant about being able to identify all the different levels of opportunistic bacteria in the blood. Right? But my simple question was always how did they get there in the first place? How did that blood fluke, which is just a parasite, or how did that fungus, how did that get in there? Is it as simple as we've been told, as, oh, well, you ate it, so therefore all of a sudden it's swimming around in you? You know, that's one of the biggest misnomers. It's, like, let's take a little sidebar here about parasites. You know, how many times have you been told it's like, oh, you eat sushi? Yeah, you have parasites. Really? Let's break that down. Okay. So if you eat a piece of sushi and it has a larvae in there or has a parasite, you're going to tell me that once it gets through the stomach acid, that it's literally just going to start swimming around in you?
So what are the pictures I've seen of parasites that look like worms?
Yeah. Well, how did that develop? This is, again, where it gets complex. Because there's nothing in biology that could survive that's in biological form, meaning a plant or an animal that can get past your stomach acid.
I've always wondered that. So how the heck did people? So I'm not clear about what you're saying. Are parasites real?
Parasites are real, but the parasites are developed internally through a toxic terrain.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And this is where, again, going back to the start point of a microzyma, or what we refer to is the bacterial life cycle. So in the bacterial life cycle, there's the start point, which is called the primitive state. And then the next stage is the bacterial state. And then the next phase is the fungal state. And then there's the viral state. Okay? 4 stages. And each of those stages has 4 stages within them. That is all governed by the internal terrain. So if your internal terrain becomes highly acidic, no oxygen, no minerals, no sunlight, too much stress, too much alcohol, too much smoking, too much whatever it is, then that internal terrain and all of the energy that you just went through starts to become toxic. This then starts to develop your natural primitive form of bacteria to evolve into more opportunistic states. Okay, so it goes from primitive, and then all of a sudden it evolves, or what we call morphs, into the second stage, which is bacterial. And as you continue down that unhealthy road, then it goes from bacterial then to fungal. And as you continue even further down that road, and it'll go from fungal to viral. Right? So
fungal is cancer, isn't it?
It is
what they call cancer anyway.
Yeah, it's a start of cancer. Parasites and fungus are synonymous. They to anybody who's dealing with cancer. I mean, it's just something that modern day science is not addressing.
So it's interesting. From what you're saying, the way that I understand it is, your body's internal terrain is providing. I'm trying to figure out the best way to put it. Is providing the opportunity for parasites. Does that make sense?
It's not necessarily providing it. It's more that the unconscious, unhealthy lifestyle creates a terrain which then develops any kind of opportunistic bacteria. Okay? We've been told that everything invades from the outside. This was the big medical scientific revolution in the 50s, and 1850s, 1860s, 1870s, until Rockefeller came in. Rockefeller saw the opportunity when he sat down and really understood what Louis Pasteur was pushing. And he realized that that was the precipice that he could use, the basis of pushing his pills and creating the pharmaceutical industry. Because you look at Pasteur's idea, his idea is based on what is referred to as monomorphism. And that just simply means is that a germ invades from the outside, and that germ, quote unquote, has no ability to evolve or devolve into any other form besides that one form, which is not true. This is, I'm going to present compelling evidence to prove my statement about that. And these guys were swept underneath the rug because of Rockefeller's money, and of course of the Flexner report, that anything outside the medical curriculum that we've created is just all pseudoscience. You see? So this is, again, please stop me anytime that you don't understand something, because my hope is I really want people to walk away from this and go, wow, I just learned something different, and possibly a different way to really approach health. That's my aim tonight.
And the evidence you mentioned earlier of how man will take something and then break it down so that only a part of that is what they utilize versus the whole.
Yeah.
So I found this video of this woman. I think you might find this interesting. This is a woman who's eaten whole foods, and this is the result. Let's see if I can bring it up. This is the result of that. It's pretty astonishing. If I can find it. Is it this one? That one. We're going to go to. Come on now.
I have had several people ask me, how old is she? She is a grandmother, and she is eligible for a senior citizen discount. Her quest started because she wanted to feel healthy and have lots of energy, but she has reaped more benefits than she anticipated.
And here we have some ginger.
Annette Larkins shows off her garden in her Miami-Dade County backyard. It's full of fruits and vegetables. Every corner of her garden has something that is edible.
And I've been eating them, and they're so good.
She also collects rainwater to drink and water her plants. Annette says the food in her garden is her fountain of youth.
I'm very vibrant. I have lots of energy, as I told you before. I'm up at no later than 5:30 in the morning as a rule, and I'm ready to go.
Annette's husband owned a meat store in the 1960s. That's when
Oh
she
my
became a
gosh.
vegetarian. But as the years went by, she became a raw vegan. She does not eat any animal products. Her food is unprocessed and uncooked.
My diet consists of fruits, nuts, vegetables, and seeds. I do a lot of sprouting of seeds. And as you can see from my garden, of course, these are the raw foods that I eat.
Annette also juices fruits and veggies.
You get an idea.
That's great.
So she's in her 70s, by the way. She looks like she's in her 30s or 40s.
Wow.
She's in her 70s, but I thought it was nice to bring that on because you mentioned the whole. She's eating of the whole. She's not eating a part of something. She's doing exactly what you're saying, feeding her body and getting her terrain in order to allow her body to function correctly.
That's correct. And
that's the result. This is the benefit of doing what you're saying. That's why I wanted to play that. It is so astonishing to see this lady. When I first saw this video years back, I went, that cannot be real. And then I actually read the article about her. And I think now she's probably close to her 80s, late 70s, 80s, because this was years back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's great. And more power to her if she wants to just stay as a vegan or raw foodist. And, you know, there are many people who just have challenges with that. But, you know, one of the things that I always say is, like, if you're going to, it's not to say that you can't eat cooked food and any of that, but I always just say that if you're going to eat cooked food, just eat something raw with it so that it gets digested properly. There's natural microbes and natural aerobic, meaning probiotics that are naturally occurring in all fruits and vegetables. You don't have to take a probiotic supplement in order to receive natural probiotics.
I think one of the things that she said, I'm pretty sure she said this in one of the interviews that she did. She said, I'm eating life. I'm not eating something that's dead. I'm eating something that's alive.
That's correct. That's actually correct. One of the names I wanted to bring up is Ferdinand Kahn. And he was born in the early 1800s. And he was one of, and this keeps going to what I was saying earlier, in that he was one of the founders of modern day bacteriology and microbiology. But he was the one who really understood and observed for the first time a primitive form, or just a simple yeast form, that evolved from an aerobic state to an anaerobic state. So meaning it actually evolved or morphed. I'll use the word morph, and sometimes I'll just say morphology. So he was the one who really actually saw it in real time, where something actually evolved into something different. Wow. And but this is the thing. What he understood is that there are species of bacteria that thrive in, let's say, a high chlorophyll or high oxygenated environment, right? And then there are species, meaning bacteria, that then evolve and they aren't dependent upon oxygen, right? And they like the let's say the dark, dense, no matter type of environment. So they thrive in that. You see, so again, it can, like I was saying earlier, is that it can evolve into an opportunistic state, or it can devolve and stay within the primitive state. And I want to give it in the end here. I want to give people a kind of a wow kind of thing in the end of all that. But I want to explain this a little bit more in detail. Where Ferdinand Kahn was the one who really got to understand this bacterial life cycle. So some of like the ones that we see here today that we have heard in food, let's just say salmonella or listeria or fungi of some sort, right? If these are present in foods, that means the food is already at a degenerative state. Why? Well, those bacteria all show up because they're designed that way to eat at the flesh of whatever it is,
To break
integrate it, break it down, and integrate it back into the soil, into the planet, so that it can give rise to something else. That is how everything is designed in biology. See? So if we start at a primitive state, how do we stay at that primitive state? And that's what the answer I want to give a little later here. One of the most important works and studies I did was with George Bukowski, and born in mid 1800s. And he was the one who really got me to understand. He was the one, for you, the New Agers that are on listening, he's the one who created the wave oscillator. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the wave oscillator is basically creating magnetism. So it's basically a combination of cosmic radiation and gravitational pull, right? And so, which creates a natural oscillation in cells. But remember, oscillation or energy fields, the basis of all within our system is water is the carrier, and trace elements is the provider of the oscillation. Magnetism is what creates the oscillation, right? And so when Mikulski was really one who got me to really understand that every cell has an oscillation internally, and then there's one externally, meaning outside of the cell. That's called your terrain, right? So there's always fluid exchange that occurs between the two of them. But in order for fluid exchange to happen, there has to be an oscillation. Again, where does that energy field come from? Well, it comes from the presence of trace elements. Remember, again, we go back to how did we, the start of all of our origin is from the ocean. So it would be silly for us to imagine we didn't bring part of the ocean with us. And part of that big ocean is, of course, the trace elements. And it's really important to understand that little tidbit of oscillation, because oscillation is one of the keys to vibrant, healthy cells. And the only way you get that is through the presence of trace elements consistently in your terrain. Right?
What are the trace elements while I'm thinking about it?
Well, I mean, there's all your primary ones and all your secondary ones, but I will just say this without getting into every one of them, is that one of the easiest ways to get this doesn't always have to come from a mineral supplement. You can actually just get it through full spectrum salt.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that.
Like sea salt.
Like sea salt.
Sea salt?
Sea salt. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a salt aficionado, because the salts that are out there, there's a lot of them, like the Malden salt, and there's the Balinese salt, and there's an Icelandic salt, and of course, there's the most popular one is the Himalayan salt, which is typically mined out of Pakistan, which is not necessarily bad, but there's a big difference between the ones that are really processed through the full moon.
Yeah.
The full moon and based on the tide. So when you have these companies that harvest water in certain vats and then go through the precipitation process where the water then starts to evaporate and they keep passing it on the vat to vat, and eventually the salt actually separates from the water.
Mm-hmm.
But what people don't realize is that in that process is that when when the salt separates from the water, guess what it actually forms? You just came from there.
Wow.
The crystals that forms that fall to the bottom are the shape of pyramids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Imagine that. And what is a pyramid? Everybody knows in sacred geometry, pyramids are one of the strongest, most powerful shapes.
Yep.
That's correct. So
Yeah.
the Malden salt
Crazy.
has that.
Wow.
The Icelandic salt has that. So does the Balinese salt, because it's still all handcrafted in a sense. So all hand harvested based
Wow.
on the moon tides.
Wow.
Yeah. Imagine that.
I never knew that.
That you could literally just get a full spectrum of salt from the ocean just through salt, just by consuming salt.
Wow.
Yeah, it's it doesn't take a lot to really be healthy, and that's also one of my aims is to give people just simple remedies and simple tools to walk away from, like, oh yeah, salt, that's easy. Well, of course it's easy. All you have to do is add it to your food. You know, you don't even have to take it like a mineral supplement. You can just literally add it to your food and just eat it. In fact,
So I use sea salt, and I'm glad I use sea salt now after you've said what you've said.
yeah. I didn't mention this, but earlier I started off in the probiotic business, and I worked for a company, and one of the things, and long story short, but one of the things that was always deleted from the research is that you can't just take probiotic and expect it to just propagate within your digestive system or your intestines, specifically in the duodenum area, because if you already have a highly acidic, a toxic internal terrain or a toxic internal colon, that is not conducive for probiotics to thrive in. So probiotics thrive when there's a clean, healthy environment, but also they thrive because of the presence of salt, because of the trace elements. And the trace elements provide the frequencies that the probiotics thrive off of.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if I understand what you're telling me, taking probiotics by itself is not necessarily going to increase the good bacteria in your gut.
Not at all.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
But
Again,
doing the same thing with salt, that increases the availability of, is that right? By taking the probiotic with salt, that increases the availability of the probiotic? Or
well,
maybe
it increases its ability to propagate within your intestine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, to really colonize, because that's what you want it to do, is you want it to colonize.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah.
What a waste of money. How many times have I taken? Yeah, I'm telling you. And some of the probiotics I've taken in the past are quite expensive.
Oh,
Quite
yes.
expensive.
I know. It's crazy, right? You know, like, that's what I'm saying, is you just don't
doing
need to
that
do that
without the aid of salt behind it, you might as well just go spit in the wind.
Yeah. I mean, also, and this is also another thing. This is the deficiency of salt, minerals in your internal terrain, I believe, is one of the biggest contributors to diabetes.
Wow.
Yeah. Why? Because you need the presence of salt in order for glucose to really even be utilized in the first place.
See, now coming from my background as being an electronics technician, I know that the body is basically a battery. It's a living battery. And the salt acts as a, I can't think of the right word. What's the word I'm looking for? Electrolyte. The salt acts as an electrolyte in that battery. So if you don't have salt in your body, then your body's ability to store energy because you're a battery, basically. Do you agree that the human body, in a very, very basic sense, is a battery? Would you agree with that statement?
I would absolutely agree with that, because even Robert O'Becker in the '60s already proved that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our system is an electrically charged system. So the thing is that what you're saying there, the presence of electrolytes, it's not just like an energy field. We are energy. The starting point, the primordial starting point, is energy. The key is, and this is gonna kind of blow people's minds. Like, the key is, how do you maintain that primordial energy? And it all comes through the internal terrain,
Which is based on or depends upon the elements, the trace elements.
the presence of trace elements. So in other words, if we know the start point of the primordial solution is these primitive forms of bacteria called mycozymas, and they're non-DNA, non-nucleus. So basically, it's light, it's energy. In religion they tell you it's about the light. The New Agers will always tell you it's about the light, but they never tell you how to actually get the light, right? I'm trying to tell you, we all have the ability to receive that, and it's not as easy, or it's not as difficult as science has made it to be. Science today just presents everything in black and white, and if you don't have it, now you're a victim to your circumstances. Therefore, we can't do anything. Well, Lipton's work of epigenetics disproves that. So I want to go back to the really, like, that statement I just said. So if we know that's a start point, the most primitive form of bacteria, that's your start point. How do you then maintain that? Because what the analogy I gave you earlier, and that is, when you look at the bacterial life cycle, everything, all bacteria evolve into either an opportunistic state, meaning an anaerobic state, or devolve back down to an anaerobic state, okay, meaning devolve back down into its most primitive form. It can go either way, but remember, the governing agency of that is your internal terrain. So if your internal terrain is hardly charged with what you refer to as electrolytes and trace elements, then most likely you will stay more into your aerobic state type bacteria. Versus if you eat a highly processed food, have a toxic life, and are dealing with multiple whatever, okay, then most likely you'll be hovering in the anaerobic states, where you have multiple different strains of opportunistic bacteria.
And that's where cancer thrives as well.
And that's where cancer also thrives.
Yep.
So we've been told that if you have this bacteria and that bacteria, you just need to take an antibiotic. Well, when you deliver a single field called an antibiotic, you're actually making the entire quantum field weaker, and you're forcing your body to work even harder. You see? So how is the key then to bring it all the way back to primitive state? The key, this is the $1 million answer right here. The key to health and longevity is, if we know the start point is a primitive bacteria, and we know that it stays there with the presence of trace elements and good water and good healthy choices, then the key is to keep it in that state so it never evolves into an opportunistic state. Okay? Now, this was echoed later by other people that I really want to bring up. One of them is Renee Keane-Tone. Renee Keane-Tone was involved in the medical, I'll just say, battle that went on between Pasteur, Béchamp, and back in the 1860s, 1870s. Rene Quinton was the one who really tracked the matrix of life, and then what we refer to as the primordial soup of life. And Quinton really supported the ideals and philosophy of Anton Béchamp, who was basically a master pharmacist, but he definitely opposed Louis Pasteur's idea of the germ theory. Right? So Rene Quinton really understood the entire kind of the story of evolution I was telling you. Now let's really focus in on what Quinton is. Quinton is during a full moon cycle, and only during a full moon, plankton gets released from the bottom of the ocean. Right? When that plankton gets released, it triggers the largest feeding cycle on the planet. So somewhere between 6 to 8 different locations without the planet. And the first within the feeding of that plankton being released, and remind you, the plankton itself is the size of a pinhead. Tiny. You barely can even see it. Right? But the first to get to consume that is tiny microscopic organism called the zooplankton. One of the most important natural planktons and natural bacteria in the ocean. Why? Because when it consumes that plankton, it creates an immediate chemical reaction in its body and then oozes out this plasma. Wow. Guess what? That plasma is the only thing in nature that's identical to your blood plasma.
Wow.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Is correct. That's
wow.
Crazy. There's nothing else like it on the planet. Nothing. And guess what?
Right, so go back a minute, Arnold. You're saying that the plankton that comes up is eaten by this
zooplankton,
and then from that it produces a plasma that's identical to the plasma of our body?
It is.
Wow.
This is why we understand the origins of life. Okay?
Wow.
This is the primordial soup. Okay? And don't forget what it's suspended in. What is seawater? We've been telling you. I've been telling you what seawater. It's the only liquid on the planet that's an aqueous solution of the entire periodic table of elements. So what happens when that plasma gets released, it osmosisly travels up to towards the surface of water and it hovers at about 90 feet below the waterline. That's where the feeding cycle on the planet, the largest feeding cycle on the planet occurs from all the different levels of predatory fish right there. And they're all eating one thing. They're eating the plankton.
Wow.
You know? They're eating the plankton through, let's just say sardines and other things that eat the plankton, but then the predatory fish eat the sardine, but they're still getting the plankton.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You see?
Wow.
So, and this is the other cool thing. So when it gets closer to the surface of the water, osmosisly, in nature, everything is spun in a vortex. And it creates these ginormous vortex that can be 25, 50 miles in diameter. And what it's doing, it's integrating the plasma with the trace elements. And to this day, the Quinton family is the only family that can go into specific areas during a plankton bloom and harvest that plasma. And that, my friends, is the basis of how we started out this conversation, of me helping people to reboot the internal terrain, is receiving that plasma.
So we have to eat plankton?
Not necessarily. But I mean, it definitely won't hurt you. You're all right. You could eat the sardines and anything that's rich in plankton. you know, but yeah, I mean, it's I would say plankton is probably up there in the top 3 most perfect foods that you can consume. Because it has all the elements that your body needs. Every aspect of it. Yeah. He Rene Quinton, it was kind of interesting, he introduced the plasma to I believe it was in 1897 at the World's Fair in where was that? I think it was in Belgium. And but what he did is he took a sick dog, and he emptied it almost of all of its blood, and he replaced all of it with just Quinton, and the dog lived happily.
Holy smokes!
Yeah,
that's supposed to be impossible.
It's supposed to be impossible. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, and this is going to be controversial. What I'm about to say. The entire idea that if, let's just say, I don't know what blood type you are, but let's just say you're type A, that the only form of blood that you can take in is type A, when it's completely untrue. You literally would only need to take Quinton in, because that is the basis of all blood. It doesn't matter what type of blood type you are.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how manufactured the medical industry is.
That's sad.
Driven not to liberate people, but to make sure they make profit on you.
Yeah.
Offer you.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So if you're able to keep your body in a state of the internal terrain in a good state, then the odds of you being sick are few to none.
Few to none.
Yeah.
And it absolutely is completely true, because they've done enough studies. That's a problem with. I was saying earlier is our system is based on what they call double placebo studies and triple this and triple that, and that their science is the almighty. Well, to me, my measuring stick is nature. And when you look at nature and 4.6 billion years of evolution, billion, not million, 4.6 billion years of evolution, got to ask yourself one question. Did nature make any mistakes? Did God make any mistakes during that evolution? Probably not.
He certainly had enough time to straighten it out if he did, right?
Yeah, right. And so, again, that's why I keep bringing up in earlier statements that we're literally the only species that are doing certain things, but yet we're the sickest on the planet.
And we're supposed to be the smartest.
And we're supposed to be at the top of that evolutionary biology, and yes, we're supposed to be the smartest, and I just don't understand it.
Oh well, I can give you a little bit of a clue. It's called greed. Yeah,
I mean, that's definitely a big part of it, and that's a big part of healthcare today. When you look at healthcare today, it's not
healthcare.
It's not helping you. But the driver isn't there to liberate you. Yeah. It's there to make money off of you.
Exactly.
While you're sick and while you're about to disincarnate.
That's the sad part. And I can't help but wonder how many of the corporations go, oh, well, you know what? This food has got all this toxic stuff in it. And the pharmaceuticals are going, yeah, keep putting it in there. Yeah. That's good.
Oh, I mean,
they're all in cahoots with each other.
Oh, they absolutely are. I mean, all you have to do is look at the major shareholders of food and the major shareholders of the pharmaceutical companies. They're other corporations, but they're basically patting each other on the back.
Yep.
And the average person is just caught in the middle of it.
And unfortunately, and this is the thing, and I don't listen. I'm by no means a scholar saying that the medical industry has no place in our world. You know, when it comes to like, you know, I take a lot of risk on my own body, and if I fell off a cliff or something, you know, patch me back up. But then, as you said earlier, I'll take it from there.
Yeah.
And that's what the medical industry is really good for. It's really set up for emergency and trauma. It's not set up for longevity.
Yeah.
It just isn't. And
there's
people have to understand that.
A couple of doctors have made videos about how they would never go to a hospital if they were sick. That's the last place in the world. Now, if I broke an arm, if I needed surgery, that's a different story. But I'm not going to go there because I got the flu or I don't feel well.
Yeah.
I got a stomach ache. I'm not going there for that. I'm staying away from that because it's not healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, and this statement I'm about to say is going to kind of like what, and that is this: no matter how much your cells or your bacteria evolve into in the most opportunistic state, it has the ability to devolve back down into its most primitive state. Okay, so what it's looking for ultimately is just P's and Q's. So no matter how much it evolves into an opportunistic state, no matter where it is, guess what? The original underlying genome is always present. It's just looking for the proper quantum fields to actually express itself.
Wow.
Yeah. And the only way you deliver the proper quantum fields is delivering it in its whole form, not its single form.
Yeah.
Okay. And that goes across the board with all vitamins, and especially, of course, pharmaceuticals. I mean, when you look at pharmaceuticals, I mean, you know, let's take a common substance, salicylic acid, which was from white willow. So white willow has about 1,200 compounds in it that make up the white willow, but you know, they decided salicylic acid, and it just made common aspirin. Well, who owns that? Bayer Aspirin owns that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the patent on it. So, but every time you deliver that, what McLaren always said, every time you deliver a single field, you're actually creating more havoc than good.
Aspirin,
because your body doesn't work in single fields. It works as a whole unit.
Someone who had to have heart surgery, they told me I had to take aspirin. Come to find out that taking aspirin will eat up your stomach.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, and it goes back to what you're saying, because it's been singular, that one component has been taken out, and it's not a whole. It actually is detrimental instead of helping. It's tearing your body down.
Yeah. You know, science. There's again, it doesn't mean that the current science doesn't have validity. But I will go as far as to saying, when it comes to biology, the platform of reductionism doesn't work in biology. It works in Silicon Valley and it works in other materialistic type industries, but it doesn't work in biology. That's just not how the system works.
Yeah.
You know, and they definitely have created standards. Like, just to say, how did they come up? And you even questioned it yourself earlier in the conversation, and that was like, how did you come up with the numbers of a standard number based on labs that my blood test is supposed to be this, and you know, my level is supposed to be this? Who came up with that?
I had
because if it was the FDA, I don't want anything to do with it.
One of my ongoing arguments is, I mentioned earlier, I had to have brain surgery many years back. The surgery was on my pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the master gland for the rest of the body. So I've been going through the hormonal war for quite some time. So when I have my blood taken and they tell me, oh, well, everything's within normal range, I go, what is normal? Why do you say it's in normal? Because what might be normal for 100 other men may not be normal for me. And this is my argument with them, because there are times when I can tell my hormones are going out of whack. They go up and down because of what's happened in the past. Now, it hasn't been as bad as I've gotten older. It's kind of smoothed itself out. But there are times I can tell things aren't, they're not the way they should be. And then I go get a blood test. Oh, everything's within normal range.
Right.
Silly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard this many times. People come in and they say, I just got a blood test. The doctor tells me that everything looks normal. And I look at them and I say, well, how do you feel? And they say, I still feel like shit. The
Yeah,
guy,
thank
the
you.
doctor didn't
Thank
give,
you.
they,
Yeah.
they didn't give me an answer.
Well, the answer is it's all normal. Or you need here's a pill. This will help you feel better.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Let's call it. It's normal to be sick all the time.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's horrible. What a shame. What a shame that people have to go through that and live their life like that.
Yeah. So one of the other scientists I want to bring up, because his quote, when I read this quote, isn't it? It just like his name is Alexis Carrel, won a Nobel Prize in 1912, and the quote is this: "The cell is immortal. It is merely the fluid that degenerates. Renew this fluid at intervals. Give the cells what they require for nutrition. And as far as we go on, the pulsation of life will go on forever."
Wow.
Yeah. And I've lived off that and have tailored and not just my own personal life, but helping others as well, based on that.
Wow.
Yeah. Another quote I love is Isaac Newton, and it's a simple quote: "The field," meaning the quantum field, "the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. The particle," meaning matter, "is the carrier of the field. The field is," meaning the energy field, or what Bukowski called the oscillation of a cell, "is what cells are looking for," meaning the quantum field. So when you go back to our story at the very beginning, it's like reductionistic science missed the part of the presence of God, the presence of spirit, and unforeseen forces, and today I think more than ever, I think the human soul needs a little soul.
Especially with everything we're going through. I can't help but believe that we're going through a tremendous spiritual war right now as all of this is going down.
Oh,
we need all the help we can get. And so the better that you feel physically, I'm sure that the better that I'm trying to make it make sense in my mind before I say it. The better that you feel physically, the better that the more, I can't think of the right word, the better chances that you have of being spiritually healthy as well. Because if you're sick physically, you don't think about that part.
No, if you're that sick, and I've worked with many people over the years, and their biggest concern is trying to get out of sickness.
Yeah.
And if they're really committed to it, there are some people. I mean, God bless them, but there are some people that just honestly, and I'm sure you've met some. They just accept it, or they just don't care.
Yeah, they accept it. Oh well. A friend of mine's mom had developed cancer, a smoker. She'd smoked for quite a few years, and developed cancer, and they had convinced her to stop smoking. So she stopped smoking for maybe a couple of months, and then she started smoking again. And I said to them, does she understand what's going on? That she's literally killing herself? And they said that she doesn't care anymore. She just wants to keep smoking. So there are people that fall into that category, and it's sad because when you have the knowledge that there's a better way, a much better way, but they don't want to, for whatever reason, they don't want to see it, cognitive dissonance, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They just want to continue in what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a saying, and I'm not exactly sure who said this. They said that the saying is, mathematics is a universal language, while music is God's mood. So, translation, what that simply means is that physical structures are something that can be calculated. A cell, a DNA strands, it's all been very well mapped out already. But what ties all that together is vibration, energy. And that's where the
Wow.
music comes in. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the things I really want your listeners to get out of this is that the key to longevity is the type of quantum field that you are delivering in your internal terrain, to your internal terrain, via through your liquid choices, via through your food choices, via through your emotional habits, via through addressing both physical and emotional trauma, because trauma is the most damaging to the internal terrain. And what does that look like? So if you had a trauma, remember Mitsumoto was able to prove that water holds memory. So if we know that water holds memory and you get a physical trauma or emotional trauma, that means that quantum field or that energy resides in you. And then because of that trauma, then we create beliefs around that trauma, so that what it does, it just keeps reperpetuating itself, recirculating itself within the system.
Like a cycle, like a vicious cycle. Yep.
Exactly. And this is the crazy part. Even if you didn't want to really do that, go through the work of trauma, because I have a whole another spin on psychology. But even if you didn't want to do that, but you actually went through a primordial solution reboot, guess what? You don't get to hide all that shit anymore, because it will address it and it will come up. Why? Because I've already seen it in multiple people. You know, conventional wisdom will completely dismiss that statement I just told you.
The physical body can. I don't remember who was I. Greg Braden, maybe. They did a documentary about people think that your memory is in your brain. Your memory is not just in your brain. Your memory is in your body. And the way they proved that was when somebody loses an arm or something, and they sew in somebody else's heart or something like that, and they also get a lot of the different habits that person had. So if somebody had a heart replacement, and the replacement heart, that person liked lemonade or something, all of a sudden this person likes lemonade. You know, they want lemonade all the time.
Yeah,
so it's in the physical part. You're right.
Yeah, it is. It's a cellular memory. It's not just the brain. The brain is really the one that helps you to solve the problem. The real answer to how you move forward and advance forward really comes from the heart, and that's part of biology.
I agree.
It's not just an intellectual thing, but our entire system is based on disconnecting you from your heart and over intellectualizing everything. I mean, if you look at the school system, it's pretty damn simple. At public schools, they just teach you how to memorize things. That's it.
Yep.
You're not really learning anything. You know,
it's sad. Yeah. I've watched it change since the time that I went to school, and it's so different, so completely different at this point. And it's about inserting belief systems as well. It's not about trying to teach children how to think. It's teaching them what to think, and that's the sad part.
Yeah, I mean, from day one, that's really the sad part too.
Yeah.
I mean, they get you to believe that it's this way, and there's nothing in between. I mean, anytime you, like, even for myself to this day, anytime I challenge conventional wisdom or conventional science, I'm immediately dismissed. Immediately.
You're a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, you're a wacko. You're a conspiracy theorist.
I love that I'm a conspiracy theorist. At least I know I'm not a conformist.
Yeah. Well, that whole term started with the JFK thing, because people questioned what they saw, and all of those are conspiracy theorists. It was actually to discredit people, so that whatever they said would sound like, oh, he's just a wacko. Let him say whatever he wants. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's no credible evidence there. It's all conspiracy.
Yeah.
And having experienced 9/11 is what really woke me up. Prior to 9/11, I didn't want to talk about politics. I didn't want to talk about any of this stuff. I just wanted to live my life quietly in peace. But 9/11 started a fire in me. I believe it was God-given fire. Would not go out. And the more questions I asked, the more instead of getting answers, the more questions. So I knew something was wrong early on. And then throughout reading and researching and some of the stuff I ran across, there truly are evil people in this world, far beyond any of the horror flicks that you can watch, far beyond that.
Oh, yeah.
Because the horror flicks are just that. That's just a flick and it's all fake. These people are real. And what they present and the evil that they have is truly evil, is really real. And it's just one of those things where you wake up to it and you go, holy smokes. And it's not just here or there. It's like we're surrounded by this sickness. These people want greed, they want power, they want to be able to do these things, and in the process, we're the ones who, if we're not knowledgeable and we're not paying attention, we're the ones who end up paying the price for it all.
Right. There was a during that time. There's a quote I ran across during the 9/11. And it's actually pretty applicable to the event, and it's quoted by Mark Twain, and the quote is, "It's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled."
Yeah, yep. And that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started asking questions, and people were telling me, "You're just wasting your time. You know, the government's got it all covered." Blah 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 blah. And I knew that wasn't right because the more that I asked questions, instead of getting answers, I just got more questions. How did the buildings come down so quickly? And
well, more importantly, how did they come down in their own footprint?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
How did the aircraft disappear into the building like that? What was it? I believe there were no aircraft. If anybody saw anything,
I
probably saw holograms. But you know, I've done several shows about it. It was just to give you an example, what evil really, just an example of evil. So if I'm right, what was happening that day is that the media was in coercion with the government, and they were showing a live picture with CGI implemented through them for probably the first time I ever tried it, but with CGI implemented through a live picture, so that you're seeing a live picture of the building, and then it blows up as an aircraft, what seems to be an aircraft approached the building, when in fact, what I believe it was is CGI. And if anything was seen, that had to be a hologram. The way the aircraft disappeared into the building is physically impossible. There's no way in the world that the aircraft could fit it. The aircraft was almost like a hot knife, and the building was like softened butter. It's just impossible. It was reinforced concrete with reinforced steel, and the aircraft is made out of aluminum. Nothing came back out. Everything went in, and nothing. That's physically impossible. Something had to come back out, but nothing. And there's more questions, but you know.
But I mean, even add to all that, like they didn't find one airplane part.
Yeah.
But they managed to find the passport of one of the hijackers. I don't know how they did that.
Yeah, able to read it too. Isn't that amazing? Here we had two buildings, 110 floors, one, 100 the other, completely disappear. But hey, we got the passport, you guys.
Yeah, right.
And then you have Building 7. For a lot of people don't realize that 3 buildings came down at the New York Trade Center that day.
Yeah.
There's building the two main buildings, and then Building 7 and Building 6, which hardly anybody talks about. Building 6 looked like somebody took a giant drill bit, and drilled a hole in the middle of the building.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a lot of things at play that day, and
that's what started my journey down this research during the research.
Good for you.
Because it was a fire that would not. I kept saying, God, something's not right. I don't know. I don't like this feeling. I want it to go away. And it wouldn't go away. I kept being driven more and more. And it was in February. I don't remember the date, but it was in February. And I know it was around midnight because my son had come home from bowling. It was a Saturday night. He found me at my computer crying uncontrollably. and he tried to console me. He thought maybe one of the siblings died or mom died or, something really bad. What I had just found out is the war that I served in was all based on a lie. We killed people for lying.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of thousands of people we killed for lying. I had the hardest time coming to terms with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me what your thought was as our nation went through this whole thing with COVID.
From the very beginning, I didn't believe any of it. I thought it was a litmus test to see if they could get people to cooperate. I remember reading many years before, long before the 9/11 thing. I remember reading a documentary somewhere around the end or during one of the world wars or something. They told people they had to turn in their gold. You have to turn your gold in, and they paid them pennies on the dollar of the value of the gold. And I remember thinking to myself, well, that'll never happen again. You can forget that. We're a lot smarter today. And then COVID came along and just proved me wrong. So many people fell for that nonsense. It was an attack on the people. There's no other way to describe it.
So you're of the belief it was essentially a coordinated biological weapon.
Worldwide, not just here in the United States. Worldwide.
Yeah.
And the vaccine, as they called it, on top of that, that was a bioweapon. Yeah. They had to change the definition of vaccine in order for this to be called a vaccine. Prior to that, if you took a vaccine, it was to prevent you from getting whatever it was, and it was to prevent you from spreading whatever it was. Now you take this thing, whatever they call it now, and it doesn't stop you from getting it. It doesn't stop you from spreading it. What it does is has created, I don't remember how many 100% increase in myocarditis, which is an inflammation of the heart, due to these things they call spike proteins that are in the shots.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I mean,
and that's tearing up the internal terrain. That's totally tearing up the internal terrain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, many people still kind of want to keep their head in the sand, but I'm taking the time to listen to a lot of the congressional hearings about all of this and what they really uncovered, and unfortunately, many people in the state that I reside in still want to believe the lie.
Isn't it amazing? Put on a white coat, have a set of stethoscopes around your neck, maybe some kind of something on your head, make you look like a doctor, and stand before people and say, this is good for you, even though it's poison and we know that it's going to kill people. Over 1 million people have already died from just directly from the shot. And I'm probably getting all kinds of trouble because we're on YouTube. But yes, million. You go to what's it called? The reporting agency that they have. You go to the reporting. I can't remember the name of it right now, but there's a reporting agency where people can go and list adverse events.
The CDC?
No. This is it's something called adverse events. I'll look it up in a second. But yeah, and people by giving sworn testimony that they were damaged somehow, and it's over 1 million now that have died directly from this shot, and hundreds of thousands have been damaged. Hundreds of thousands. This thing should have never gone out. Period. They should have never been introduced. They knew doggone. They stopped the tests when all the animals they were testing died. They figured, oh, well, that's enough of that. Let's just go to humans. What's it called? VAERS, I think is what it's called. VAERS, I think is what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if that's what it is. Yeah, it's called VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. If you go there and you know where to look, you can find all kinds of information regarding adverse events that were caused by different, what they call vaccines.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, that's a whole different conversation, but that's...
but it falls in line with what you're saying with regard to the internal terrain. You're disturbing and destroying your internal terrain, and in the process of that, you're allowing all kinds of other opportunistic things to happen. And one of the most common is the swelling of the heart, which they call myocarditis.
Yeah. I recently had a conversation with one of the gals, a nurse, who I work with, and she was really candid with. She was in the thick of all of it, and she was pretty candid about telling me what she really saw during that time. And I tell you, what I heard was a complete horror story.
It is. Hospitals were being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to kill people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she would say people would line up to get in, and the protocol was essentially those ventilators. You stick the ventilator in, and within an hour or so, the people would be dead.
Yeah,
the ventilator wasn't the issue, and people's inability to breathe. You can't just shove oxygen and expect the body to start breathing. That's not how it works.
They were given a remdesivir protocol. Many of the hospitals were told to introduce this remdesivir, which is a very highly toxic medication, if you want to call it that. In the test for this drug, over 50% of the trial, they had deaths, and yet they were introducing this remdesivir. What was happening is the remdesivir was causing the lungs to accumulate with mucus. And then they're putting them on a respirator and just forcing mucus into whatever areas that you could still breathe through that the lungs can handle. Now you're just basically drowning the person in their own mucus. It's horrible. It's evil. But this is what we have to be aware of. This is one of the things that people are not, they keep us busy with worrying about how are we going to make enough money this month. Growing up, when I was growing up, if you were married, you had the opportunity to, if one of you wanted to work outside the house, you could. The other one could work inside the home and make it a home. And my parents decided along that line. One of them worked in the home, one of them worked out. We had a nice home. We had a car. We go on vacation. It takes two people now, and you're lucky if you can meet the bills at this point with two of you working. This is the way that they put the stress, on us. And as you pointed out earlier, one of the things of ruining your internal terrain is stress.
Yeah.
And so they keep the stress factor high, and keeping the stress factor high keeps people sick. They get to sell more pharmaceuticals. And then anybody like you who comes along and says, well, wait a minute, there's a better way. He's a conspiracy theorist. Don't listen to him. He's crazy. This is what we put up with.
Yeah. It's stress plays a major role in overall, and people don't get that. And and then on top of that, the system is set up to not just disconnect you from self, but it's also set up to pull you away from nature. All your answer is really understanding how to reintegrate nature. So, for instance, the scientific way that modern day science has tried to come up with the answer for sun, lack of sun, is just sit in a red light bed. Okay, so you're telling me you need to go spend $1,000 for a red light bed, take the time to sit in a red light bed instead of actually just getting your ass out of bed and go walk out in the sun.
Yours is crazy.
This is how silly the system is, and everybody believes it. And then you have a Joe Schmo out there from the Ben Greenfields and to whoever else out there that are pushing that this is better for you than just going out and getting sun.
Or the sun is dangerous. Don't go out in the sun. You got to put sunscreen on, which is more dangerous than the sun itself. The sunscreen's got so much garbage in it. It does more harm to you than anything else. But you got to have, sunscreen.
Yeah.
When I was
that's
younger,
the crazy.
one of my favorite things was to go fishing, and I had the opportunity to buy a boat and a van. I got a package deal for a really sweet price. So I went fishing quite a bit. I was a firm believer, if you're going to have a boat, you got to use it, because if you don't, it just starts to fall apart. So I was, when I tell you I'd go fishing at least one time a week in my boat, and I'm not exaggerating, and I would go out, no sunscreen. I'd come back, sometimes sunburned a little bit. Never had skin cancer, never had to worry about it. It's just one of those things. Now,
Yeah.
I do have some adopted kids, and one of them, I call her the white meat girl. If she's out in the sun for 15 minutes, she's burnt. Okay, so
Wow.
my question's a little different. But what I'm saying is, all the times that I went out there, and I don't know how many hours a day, never had a cancer of the skin, never had a problem with any of that. And it's because the sun is good for you. It's supposed to. God figured all that out before we came around. This insanity, Oh, you got to be careful of the sun. Oh, you got to put on, and in some places, I think it's Hawaii, and they're working on it down in the Keys in Florida, where if you put sunscreen on, they don't want you coming in the water because it's killing off the coral reefs. The chemicals that are being released.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So imagine if they're killing off the coral reefs, what are they doing to your body?
Yeah.
Not good. Not
Right.
good.
Yeah.
And your skin is the largest organ that we have, right?
Yeah, it is one of the largest organs. I mean, it definitely not just what you put on top of it, but also from an eliminatory standpoint as well. Because if all the other avenues of exiting, meaning either through the colon or through urine or through the lymphatic ducts and kidneys and liver, if it can't get it through those internal channels, it will push it literally out of the skin. So whatever that is, I actually wanted to make a comment. And this is how silly it is that to me it just kind of people falling for this. And that was when we went through this thing, this whole COVID, and they convince you that doing or receiving this so-called shot, the COVID shot, that it would prevent you from getting COVID.
But it doesn't.
But yet everybody that got it that I know of also got COVID. I would literally just tell them, how does that make sense to you? And you've had COVID how many times now? Riscalla, this is what I did. When COVID hit, I was running around with a nebulizer and ketone isotonic so they could breathe.
Yeah.
And I would walk into a home with 10, 12 people with mask on. I would walk in there, no mask on, have everybody breathe ketone. It would give them relief. I'd walk out. I never once during COVID got COVID. Not once. And so I would walk, and then to a house full of people with COVID.
I had a personal friend of mine. We were conversing on Facebook. They put up a post about, there was this thing about real popular, but I got my shot. No, I'm responsible. I'm not going to spread it, blah, 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 blah. So all I did is I just asked a question. And the question was, what's the purpose of getting this if it doesn't stop you from getting it and it doesn't stop you from spreading it? Well, this person wrote back to me and said that basically they hope I get it and die. Okay. About 6 months later, they're no longer with us. They're gone. They took the original and they took the booster and another booster, and they're gone. I don't know what the reason behind why they're no longer here. I just know that they're no longer here. They didn't bother to tell people that the average recovery rate for this God-forsaken disease that was killing all these people, the average recovery rate was well over 98%. So that meant over 9 out of 10 people were able to recover without medical intervention. Why do we need this?
Yeah.
The ability to have critical thinking and common sense was thrown out the window in exchange for fear. And out of the fear came panic, and out of the panic came poor decisions. And a lot of people are paying the price for it. And yes, I do believe it was a biological attack from the beginning, as well as what was supposed to stop it was a biological attack. We were getting attacked from 2 different angles. People trusted this. Trust the science. Trust the science. Don't question the science. And when they came out with hydrochloroquine, or where they said ivermectin, ivermectin's a horse paste, and hydrochloroquine is dangerous. You'll die if you take. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people believe that? It's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sitting back and watching that essentially the first year of lockdown was really challenging for me.
And look what they did to us, Arnell. Look what they got away with. How many people's parents, grandparents, and so forth, husbands and wives, having been separated and put into a hospital, and no, you can't visit them, and they pass away, and you never get to say your final goodbyes?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
that's
still waiting.
it's happened.
Still waiting to
Happened
see
to me
somebody
too.
pay for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you know, I'm having a difficult time, even though they've had plenty of Senate hearings about all of it, and have proven that this was intentional.
They're still pushing it.
My question is anyone going to pay for it?
That's what I'm waiting for.
I feel that the people as a whole, because people have lost their will in the sense to fight for the rights and fight and be okay in the uncomfortable. Most people are not comfortable in the uncomfortable, and you know, when you look around the globe here and you see some of these upheavals and some of these riots and some of these protests, and many of them can be very peaceful. Yes, I agree that some of them get out of control. But for the most part, some of these protests, like let's just say, for instance, this recent protest in Manila, I mean, that was just about the corrupt government. That's all it was. But it was a peaceful protest of millions of people, right? And the thing is that I don't really feel many people have enough guts to really go out there and speak about really their right, because what people forget is that the government works for you. You don't work for the government.
That's what it's
but the
supposed
problem
to be.
is, but the problem is that people don't do anything about it. They don't speak up anything about it. So therefore, the government's just going to continue doing what they're going to do.
Your silence is considered consent. That's how they look at it. So if I use this analogy quite frequently on my shows. If you and I are standing alongside of each other, and I say, I'm going to kick you, and you don't say anything, you don't say, don't kick me, you don't say, you better not, and you just we're just standing there, all of a sudden I kick you. Well, I told you I was going to kick you, you didn't say anything. Your silence became my consent. That's how they look at it. So they'll tell us in many different ways, they will tell us what they're going to do far before it happens. May not be right in your face. It may be encrypted in some way, but they will tell you. And if you don't speak up and say something, then whatever they do, they believe they're justified in doing it because they told you they were going to do it ahead of time. We were told about 9/11 long before 9/11 happened. We were told about 9/11. A lot of the stuff that goes on, these school shootings. How many of the school shootings had a quote drill before they had the school shooting? I'm guessing almost every one of them had some kind of a drill prior to the shooting, and then you have the shooting. So they're telling you what they're going to do. They just may not be in your face. Hey, listen, by the way, we're going to kick you. You know, they'll do it in a different way, but they'll do it and they'll get the message across somehow. And then when they do perform whatever it is that they're performing, they're justified because, hey, silence is consent.
Right.
So we must be able to speak out. We must be able to be in that uncomfortable zone, like you were saying. I don't like being there, but I don't like thinking in the future that if something happens to my children and I could have said something that may have stopped that from happening, then I share in that guilt. I don't want to carry that guilt.
Yeah. I echo that. And the uncomfortable is what's going to make you grow, by the way. I don't know why many people seem to resist that.
And the willingness to just listen to somebody else's point of view. That's something that has been drastically reduced. We're not able to have discussions like many years ago. If you're having a discussion with a particular person and they don't like what you're saying, they just shut you down. Or they will literally walk away or curse you out. But the point is the discussion doesn't continue. It stops.
Yeah, I mean, I have that all the time with medical doctors and scientists who have been indoctrinated into the ideals of conventional
educational systems and their way of thinking, and they're just not open to hearing perspective from a different set of lenses.
Yeah.
And the big part of it, the main reason is because they were never taught that. They never were taught to be, in a sense, a critical thinker. They were taught to, this is the truth, so therefore this is all you should be talking about.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
You know, anything outside of that is like the Flexner report said, it's just pseudoscience.
It's narco, it's conspiracy theorists, it's snake oil, all of the terms that they come up with.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're winding down pretty quick, so I'd like to give you an opportunity for any final thoughts before we sign off for the evening.
Well, excuse me. I hope that your listeners really could hear what it is I was really trying to convey here, and science has missed something in science, and that is really addressing these unforeseen forces, and the unforeseen forces being the most essential in DNA expression. But how to get those unforeseen forces is so simple, and science today has made it so complicated. So, the examples of the food and the salt and these other things I give examples to. Even there's new things out there, not necessarily new, but like 5,000-year-old technology, like this really unique sugar out of India. And that sugar is just, I've been playing around with it for a while, and talk about quality versus quantity. And what I've been able to prove with that is it's just beyond my expectation. So
say that again. It's a sugar from where? From India?
Yeah, it's a sugar out of India, and it's just combine it with some salt and this sugar, and I tell you what, the performance that you get out of that, it will it will run circles around Gatorade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gatorade is not what it used to be.
Yeah, right. But it's just beyond the expectation of what that combination. Just those simple solutions is what I want to give people, understanding that there are solutions. Nature does, and has always provided it. It's just that the narrative has changed in a way where conventional wisdom thinks that they know more. So, yeah. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity of coming on here.
Thank you for the education. I learned quite a bit.
Yeah,
and I'm certain that there are people out there listening who learn quite a bit as well, and be able to take this information and make their life better through it. I greatly appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you.
I wish you well. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you watching and listening and paying attention. We'll be back in a week. Lord willing. God bless.
Thank you.
Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the